Travel Squad podcast.
We're four friends that grew up together in the same small town.
We followed each other to San Diego, and now we adventure the world together.
One passport stamp at a time.
We're here to share our travel stories and inspire you to go on your own adventures.
Even if it starts with your own backyard. I'm Jamal.
Brittany,
Kim,
And I'm Zaina.
and we're the Travel Squad podcast.
So grab your tickets.
Your passport.
And don't forget your travel insurance.
And prepare for takeoff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Travel Squad podcast. China!
China.
Hey, by the way, I love China.
We took a 10-day trip to China as a travel squad, and we learned so much about the country, the people, and the Chinese history.
So one of the questions that we got asked when we told people we were going to China is, why are you going to China? Wasn't that a question that you had for the whole group, Kim, when we told you that was next on the get-go?
Exactly. Why China?
China all the time.
And I'll admit, China wasn't necessarily high on my list of must-do travel locations, but the reason why we went was simply for two reasons, as China was more specifically my location that I picked, even though it's not high up on my list. One of the main reasons why was we found a guided tour that was really, really inexpensive. It included flights, hotels, transportation within China, all for a reasonable price. And on top of that, we also went to Shanghai. And in Shanghai, we had a free day, and Shanghai has the newest Disney park to open, Shanghai Disney. And so since it's one of Brittany and I's bucket list things to do, to go to all Disney parks, the combination of the fact that it was an inexpensive trip and it went to a place where there's a Disney park for me to go to, definitely made this one actually happen. And I think I speak for all of us when we were thinking, well, China's not high on the list, but we all love China, right?
I love China now, but when you guys were throwing that out there, I was like, why would I want to go to China? I have never even thought about China, and I'm not a Disney person. But as I do with most trips, just jumped on because it's a place in the world, and I want to see all of the places in the world, and definitely I'm so glad that I went.
Did anyone ask you, Zaina or Brittany, why you guys were going to China?
I think it's just not super high on people's travel lists. So it's more of curiosity of why would you choose China over some place that is more popular? I think I probably had that thought too, but I just don't like being left out. And, regardless, it's another stamp in the passport and,
Some FOMO action for you.
Exactly. Some major FOMO, but also I know that we're going to be going to the Great Wall. And if anything, I want to see the Great Wall. So shoot,
Yeah.
you guys, let's go to China. We're going to China.
The Great Wall definitely
Yeah.
sold me.
I think when people think of China, they think about how English isn't a prevalent language in that country, and so it may be difficult. And I think that really just intimidates people. So when I was telling my coworkers that I was going to China, they were like, "Why China?" And my response is always, "Why not?"
It's
Why
a good
not
response.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We also heard a lot of warnings about China in terms of the food. The food's not like what you'd expect in the US, or the food's not good. I don't know if we are going to talk about this on the podcast, but I want to say the food is amazing.
We'll definitely talk about the food, because I don't know what everyone was talking about who has been to China and said it wasn't as good as you have it here.
Yeah.
I'm longing to go back simply for the food. I mean, it was so good.
I want to go back for that plate that they served you of sweet and sour pork. I don't know what the other plate option was when we had lunch that day, but I chose wrong. The other thing is this trip was coming off the heels of Machu Picchu, and I did not take any snacks to Peru, and everyone else did, and I regretted not taking snacks. And then someone told me that make sure you take snacks to China because you might not like the food there. So I took a shitload of snacks, and I didn't need any of it because the food was so good.
You really liked that Peking duck dinner, didn't you, Zaina?
Oh my goodness.
We'll get into a little bit of that more later, I guess, right?
I've never eaten more duck in my life, and I probably won't again. So China is very unique. And it really makes you feel like a celebrity because everyone wants to take your picture. Maybe it's just for the fact that maybe a lot of Americans don't go to China, but really people were treating us like celebrities and they were constantly grabbing us and taking pictures with us. I remember at one point someone grabbed Jamal and I to take our picture, and the guy was wearing a San Diego t-shirt. And we got super excited and we're like, oh, we're from San Diego. And I have no idea if he really understood what we were talking about. He was just so excited to get his picture with us.
Yeah, I just think when they see, Westerners visiting their country, it's exciting to them because China's, up and coming, as having a lot more tourists now than like ever before. But still a lot of people seeing that it's really unique. So they want to take your photos. I mean, it happens so many times to all of us, but more particularly, Kim, Brittany,
Yeah, there was
Zaina.
one
They
part-
like him with the girls, not so much the guys.
There was one part where me and Brittany were just standing around and these guys came up to us to ask to take our picture, and we're like, okay, it's the millionth person that's asked, and we're like, well, can we take a picture with you? And so we have pictures with them too.
Yeah. Or even there were times where we were sitting in the group and our tour guide was talking to us. And, of course, we're outside, we're in a public area, people are passing us, and people would come up and start taking pictures
Or
of
filming us.
Yeah, while we're sitting there as a group listening to our tour guide. And you just sometimes wonder, like, oh my goodness, there are so many pictures of me out there. What are they doing with them?
So actually, I kind of got frustrated with that by the end of the tour. And so there was one day where this lady just kept taking our photo, and she kept going up to the group, interrupting us. And so when we passed her again, I got out my camera and I just took a whole bunch of photos of her.
Yeah, but
She
the
probably
other
liked it though.
She was extra aggressive than most people. Other
I was
people
just
would
about to say.
ask. She literally, not even just coming up to Brittany, would interrupt our tour with everybody else and just get kind of in the whole mix
Yeah,
of
that
things.
was
And
rare, though.
that one was obnoxious, but very, very rare. Everyone else is usually polite. Sorry.
Everyone else was very nice.
Everyone was
and it
so
was a
nice.
fun experience because we would have photos with these random strangers too.
Yeah.
So in this episode, we're going to talk about why go on a guided tour, the cities we visited, and answer listener questions of the week.
One of the reasons that we decided to do a guided tour was simply because, one, we saw it on sale. Like, sometimes our destinations are dictated by the sales. But on
Most
top
of
of
the
that,
time.
I feel like China is a country that is a must-do in a guided tour situation for several reasons. One of them being that I've already touched on, cost effective. We chose a tour that included our flights, hotels, all our tours within country. They did have some optional ones that you can pay to upgrade to, but within every city there was your tour included.
Shout out Gate1.
Gate1 Travel.
I love you.
This was the beginning of a lifelong love affair with Gate1 Adventures.
And this is not sponsored. Gate 1, I wish they were sponsoring us, but they're not. We just love them. They're so good. The service is amazing. They picked us up at the airport with a sign. All of our transportation, he made sure we were up at a certain time. He made sure we had our passports when we needed them.
oh, that's another
Who forgot
story.
their passports one time?
Yeah, we did.
I think that was Kim and Zaina.
Yes, we forgot
And they
our
just
passports.
and they would order our food, make sure we got the best food, which is probably why we enjoyed what we ate so much, and gave us along with the tours all of our history lessons. It was just red carpet service there, and we love them.
Yeah, one of the things that when you're going through a tour company, they do, in order to get those cost-effective rates, they do fly you out of a big airport. We're here in San Diego, and we had to drive 2 hours north to LAX in Los Angeles and fly out of there.
We also had to stop about 40 times so Brittany could pee.
I have like the smallest bladder ever.
I watched you from the moment we got up, Brittany. I don't know where all that liquid in your body came from. Like, you literally drank 1 cup of coffee and maybe a glass of water, and we had to stop 40 times. But
But that's okay. We
not
made our
40 times.
flight. We made it to the
5.
airport, and we were good.
yeah, and I think Brittany touched on this earlier when she said, obviously, if you don't know Chinese or any other language for what other country you're meeting, but realistically, Chinese is a difficult language, and if you have no elementary foundation for it, the guided tour is clutch for that aspect of things. You have your tour guide. He knows English. Clearly, he's a native. He knows Chinese, and you don't have to do any ordering of food, nothing when you try to check into the hotels. You don't have to worry about transportation. So it's just kind of show up, and you don't have to feel one bit of uncomfort, being in a foreign land and not knowing anything about the language, especially in China, I feel like more so than anything else.
Our tour guide was with us our entire duration of our trip, which was really nice because you just have a consistent person. But when we went to different cities, we also got local guides that knew that particular city, which was really helpful to navigate that one particular city. But like I said, your one major guide goes with you for the entire trip duration. And so you build a relationship with them as well. And it's just very helpful when you're trying to order beer, for example. We all wanted to order a cold beer.
How do you say beer in Chinese? Mandarin.
Bing Pizhou.
I want a cold beer.
That's cold beer.
Oh, so what are we talking?
Pingzhou.
Oh, I wouldn't have gotten that.
Pingzhou is just beer?
No, Pizhou.
Pizhou.
Bing is cold. Pizhou.
Okay, I thought Bing Pizhou was I want a cold beer, but no, that's just cold beer.
I don't know how to say I want.
Okay.
I didn't get that far.
But we knew the basics.
So without
matters.
this guided tour, I don't think I would have even gone to China because people don't speak English there. All the signs are in Chinese. There's no way we wouldn't have been able to get around as easily. And remember the first day where we had to order food on our own, how lost we were with the menu and what we ordered.
We weren't that satisfied when we ordered by ourselves.
We ordered something that we thought was like medium spicy, and it was the hottest thing in the world. We couldn't even
Super
finish
spicy.
it.
I remember that.
So to give you a little bit of context, we're flying in from LAX. We land in Beijing. And at this point, I think we're landing at 3 p.m. We're super hungry. We want to eat. We get to the hotel after they pick us up. It's a hour-long drive to
from the
airport to the hotel. And Jamal makes the comment that, hey guys, I think I just saw a 7-Eleven around the corner from the hotel. And no one believed Jamal because it felt like we were walking forever. And everyone was like, Jamal, what are you talking about? Where is this 7-Eleven that you speak of?
It was several blocks. I thought it was closer. It was several blocks.
So we were able to stock up on water. That was good. And then we decided, obviously we're hungry and we need to eat something. And so we went to this restaurant and it was just
right next door to the hotel.
It was mind boggling because we just, everything is in Chinese. We have no idea what we're ordering. And basically, like what Kim said, I mean, we thought we ordered something with medium spice and you couldn't even eat it. It was the hottest thing you've ever eaten in your life.
Well, even using the translation app was difficult, but I just want to let the listeners know this was pretty much one of the only days that dinner and our meal was not provided, simply because it was the day that we arrived. Several people coming in from other flights. We flew out of Los Angeles. Other people on the tour, the special was out of New York. So there was just timing differences. So because of that, there was not a group dinner that was included. And just even in that little debacle of trying to just order and, do things on our own, it was very, very difficult. So guided tour comes in handy.
Well, I think there was only one other night that we didn't have dinner because when you're on the guided tours, they feed you breakfast, they feed you lunch, but dinner is kind of up in the air. So we bought the specials every single night. So we were constantly doing something every single night. And because we're going out to do something, they would feed us dinner. But there was one night that we didn't purchase the added on evening activity. And so we did walk around. I think we were in Xi'an at that point, and it was just so confusing because there's nothing in English.
We ended up eating at the hotel for dinner at the hotel restaurant.
Kim didn't realize we fed her shrimp on that one. Miss, I don't like seafood.
Still mad about that.
I didn't even know about it until recently.
That's so funny. I thought we ate at KFC.
No, I can still
at the
taste the shrimp in my mouth.
Oh, you didn't even
You didn't
know.
know. You were saying how good it was.
I call your lie.
So one other thing about guided tours to know is that when you prep for the tour and the country, they tell you what immunizations you need. They tell you what you should pack. They tell you some tips and tricks. Like, for example, China is a bring your own toilet paper country. And so I had that pre-packed before we went. But it gives you a lot of insight of how to plan for the trip and get the most out of your trip before you even go.
Mm-hmm. I want to say one more thing about the guided tours, and that is that obviously you're on a tour with other people, there's people that you're going to really click with. It's not all old people. In fact, we met a couple on this trip that we became really, really good friends with. And we're actually going, I think you guys took another trip with
We
them.
went with them to Japan.
And then we're going to be visiting them in November when we go to Arkansas. So you actually make friends with these people that you're on this trip with for 10 days. And so it's really nice.
So when we were in China, they took us to 3 cities in particular. We landed in Beijing. We also went to Xi'an as well as Shanghai.
And they flew us to each of those cities too. China is huge. We did not drive to those locations. And again, benefits of the guided tour, those flights are built into the price that we paid.
The one bummer was that we didn't get to go on the bullet train. I was sad about that.
We did in Japan.
I didn't.
We missed you, Kim.
And when you have to go check in for these flights, your tour guide is at the front of the line, making sure everyone gets on the flight, making sure everyone gets their luggage checked. So it's like full service.
And they take your luggage for you.
Mm-hmm.
What was your guys' favorite part about Beijing of the things that we did?
What was my favorite part?
The pandas. Oh, the panda
pandas.
zoo.
Okay,
They were
Kim is
so
panda.
cute.
I feel like it's just so hard to choose. Beijing was such a fun city. I really liked the Great Wall. I liked the place that they took us to buy the pearl necklaces.
I'm just wondering why you didn't say the Peking duck dinner was your favorite thing, Zana.
You ate a lot of duck that night.
Why don't you tell us the story of the Peking duck dinner, Zaina?
So this isn't the very first night, right? The very first night is when we went to that restaurant, but this is like the first full day.
After
and that
tour.
night, yeah, exactly. So we did,
Wine and duck dinner night.
yeah. So, well, they advertised it as the Peking duck dinner. And I guess we had unlimited alcohol, to be really frank with you. I don't remember this. So I probably drank a little bit and I'm eating the duck. And they give you these little not paper wrappers, but it's their version of a tortilla.
It's like their version of, I would describe it as a tortilla.
Yeah. So you can put the duck in this tortilla with the sauce. And I guess
And little vegetables.
Oh,
and roll it up.
Sauce. Ooh, the sauce.
I don't even remember that. But I guess I drank a lot. And now all of a sudden, I'm hungry. And I ate a lot of duck. And I kept saying how good I don't believe that I did this. But I guess they keep telling me that I kept saying how good it is. It's so good. It's so good. Next thing you know, I'm stuffed. And then as
They
soon as
kept
I'm
cutting
stuffed.
ducks and bringing out more duck.
Yeah, I can't believe how many ducks
It
they
was
brought out.
advertised as the Peking duck dinner. And so we thought, like, we're going to be eating duck all night. So we're filling up on duck.
By course 5, they brought out like 5 different ducks per our table.
And then it's
When they're going to bring out more food, like more normal Chinese food on top of that, when we're stuffed on this duck already.
right.
Start to get rice and chicken and pork. And we're like, whoa.
I would say that's the one, if there was one critique of our trip, it's that I don't think it was articulated to us that there's more beyond the duck at the Peking duck dinner.
So I clearly stuffed
Yeah.
myself on duck.
So now it's a running joke that duck is Zaina's favorite dish because she had so much duck that night.
Well, it's one of those things where when you fill up too much on a good thing and it just stuffs you so much that you're like, oh my gosh, I can never do this again. So at one point, I think this is when we were flying from Beijing to Xi'an, they do feed, this isn't like the United States where they don't feed you on the domestic flights. In China, they do feed you on domestic flights.
Sometimes questionable food.
Yeah, so they brought out I didn't hear what they said. And so I asked Brittany, what are they serving? And she said, it's either fish, was it, or duck? And I looked at her and I laughed because at this point we're already laughing at me because of how much duck I ate. And I thought to myself, they would never serve duck on an airplane because in the United States,
That's where you're wrong.
Yeah. So when the flight attendant came to me, and I'm just brushing Brittany off thinking, okay, whatever, I'll just find out when the flight attendant comes. And she comes and she asks me, what do I want to eat? And I ask her, what do you have? And she says, we have fish or we have duck. And my jaw drops because I'm like, oh my goodness, Brittany was serious. They really do serve duck on airplanes.
What did you end up getting?
I got the fish. I absolutely got the fish.
A little ducked out, huh?
My favorite part about this trip, or to Beijing specifically in the city, was the Great Wall. Because, every single vacation I got to do a little hiking. And so when we got to the Great Wall, our tour guide said to us, you can go to the right, which is easy, or you can go to the left, which is hard. So we all booked it to the left and started climbing up the Great Wall.
We didn't book it. Brittany was like, we're doing the hard side.
I think it was me though, no? Because didn't you guys want the easy side? And I was like, come on, guys, we just got back from Machu Picchu. We can do the hard side.
One thing to know about the Great Wall is the steps aren't even. So you come across really large steps where you're like huffing and puffing trying to get up one step. And then you get to these tiny baby steps as well. So it's hard to maintain a pace because every step is uneven.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Historian, do you want to give us any facts about the Great Wall?
It's thousands of miles long and hundreds of years old. No, but yeah, but no, I mean, it was originally built to keep, the Mongols out from invading China. That's really the main deterrent of why they actually had built the wall. But, obviously it's thousands of miles long. You could see it in other places other than Beijing, but Beijing is one of the only major cities that it actually kind of runs through north of the city. So, when we went there, it was actually really interesting to see because now they built the highway that goes under the Great Wall. Do any of you guys remember that?
Yeah.
How the road went under the Great Wall? And so when they had the pavilion area for us to get out, like Brittany said, it was either to the right, which was on a more flat side of the mountain where, the road was running through, or we can go to the left. And we went to the left, and it was definitely a very, very steep hike up that.
Well, I figured if we go to the left and we get to the top of that, then we can look out to the flat parts and just have a really nice view.
We had a really good view. I feel like if we went to the right, we would have been able to traverse more of the wall, but we went to the left, so we got a higher elevation to kind of overlook.
I have two things I want to say about the Great Wall. One is that people thought that, and you've seen pictures of the Great Wall where it's covered in people and there's people everywhere and you can't walk. And that's what I was scared that we were going to be going into. There was nobody on the Great Wall with us. We got pictures with nobody in them. The second thing I want to say is wear a cute outfit because you're going to take lots of pictures.
I know, Kim, you specifically picked out your Great Wall outfit.
And I love that picture to this day.
It's a good photo.
And I got to say, once we got off the Great Wall, when we get to the bus, they served us ice cream on the bus. And it
Oh, yeah. I
hit
forgot
the
about
spot.
that. Because it was a warm day. It wasn't excessively hot, but it was a warm day. So, yeah.
It's warm.
Well, regardless of if it's
And
warm or
windy.
not, I mean, when you hike up the hard side of the wall, like that ice cream is just 5-star phenomenal.
And then we had lunch after that somewhere.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did. So I think that same day they took us to the Beijing Zoo.
Yeah, that was a big day. We went, because we're on a guided tour, they are jam-packing our schedule, which is really nice because we get to see a lot. We also went and saw the Olympic area where they had the Olympics.
The
Where
opening,
was that?
the opening ceremonies in Beijing, some of the stadiums, they drove us by
Check
kind of
that out real
area,
quick.
yeah.
And then we went to the zoo where they had pandas. And I've seen pandas before, but these ones, there was tons of them. And they were playing and jumping and like climbing on things and falling over and running. And they were the cutest little pandas ever. And then they had like a big cage full of lemurs. There were like hundreds of lemurs in this cage and they were so cute.
So back to the pandas, I just want to point out that in the zoo, there was a big poster and it was in Chinese, so I couldn't read it. But basically it translated to pandas are very lazy creatures in general. And so the panda population is declining quite significantly. So to encourage the pandas to reproduce, they've actually made panda porn to encourage the pandas to have sex and reproduce and have babies.
Is that how did you get the translation?
Well, I think they had it kind of in English, if I
like the
remember,
gist from the
in
picture.
one part, or we asked our tour guide and he
Oh.
told us what it was. But do you not remember the photo
the only thing I remember
took?
is the picture.
Well, yeah. So I took a photo because in the area where they were having that general information, the panda exhibit, they actually have a photo of pandas mating. And the panda that's on top, he just has a big grin, big smile on his face. I took a photo
we'll
of that.
put that on our Instagram.
Be sure to check it out on Instagram, like Kim said, and we'll see it up there. But it's pretty funny. But I just want to touch on one thing as well. Kim said, I've seen pandas because here in the San Diego at the zoo, we have pandas here, but
Not anymore.
Well, not anymore. China took them back.
Sad.
But
Sad panda.
even though these weren't necessarily wild, they were in captivity at the zoo, there was something genuinely exciting about seeing pandas in China where they come from.
And they were so active.
Yeah.
Didn't you get a video of a panda just running back and forth doing whatever it was doing? It was
Yeah, I did. He was kind of in a corner, then all of a sudden he just kind of jumped up and started like galloping, almost like a horse. It was kind of yeah.
And then we saw lemurs as well. And I loved the lemurs because they're all sitting around meditating.
Yeah,
in the
they were
sun.
sitting on their butts, like for real, and just like zoning out. And they were so cute.
With their cute little hands like perched in the air.
Yeah. Those were so adorable. One thing about Beijing that really I wasn't expecting was how they had flowers everywhere. The roads were lined with flowers and just rose
Trees.
beds. Yeah, exactly. So the highway lanes are separated by just a garden.
Like median gardens, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the things our tour guide was telling us that they're doing to combat the pollution is they're trying to like plant trees and flowers all over the place. So all the roadways are really beautiful, lined with flowers, trees, really, really well maintained. In all honesty, way better than you see on the freeways here in the States. I mean, it was really pretty.
Yeah, that was one thing that was a myth that we'd always heard is the pollution is so bad you can't see and everyone's wearing masks. And there were some people wearing masks, but I wasn't affected by the pollution whatsoever.
I mean, we may have just gotten lucky. I remember when we landed back on our way home, I feel like I could see it a little bit. But during the time we were there, yes, I will agree with Kim that pollution really wasn't an issue for us at that time.
The traffic was bad for sure, but
Traffic's always bad in big cities.
A lot of people also said that China was a dirty place to go, and I didn't feel like it was dirty at all. It was very clean, very pretty, and it really helped seeing all of the beautiful flowers along the highways.
Yeah. From Beijing, we flew to Xi'an, and I think that's the flight where they served us duck or fish. So, you know what I do remember, though, about the flight from Beijing to Xi'an was it was really turbulent. I remember that because I was sitting in the middle. Jamal was at the window. I was in the middle, and then it was the husband of the friend, the couple that we met, and I started to cry because it was shaking so bad. And he looks at me, he's like, "Are you okay?" And I have tears streaming down my face, and I'm like, "I'm fine."
That was the flight where they had the duck because they stopped meal service at one point because the turbulence was so much. I remember that actually.
And, you know, talking about turbulence, I remember when we were landing in Beijing, it was a little bit turbulent. And I feel like I've never experienced such turbulent flights like I did when we were over there. So I don't know if it's something about the air patterns or what, but there was a lot of turbulence.
Well, a lot of people may not have heard of the city Xi'an in China, but what it's really, really famous for is the Terracotta Soldiers that they have there.
I'd never heard of it either, but I'm really into history and ancient artifacts and what's left over from thousands and thousands of years ago, and this was like a paradise for that.
Yeah. Jamal, you want to tell us what the Terracotta Museum even is?
Well, so up until like, I believe it was in the 20th century, early like 1900s, a farmer was actually digging because Xi'an is a big farming area, or at least was, several decades ago. And as he was digging, I believe for a well, but nonetheless, he was on his farm digging on it. And he came across some clay soldiers, which I think terracotta, of clay.
When he found it in the ground, he thought it was a real person. And there's some kind of bad juju around if you dig up a human body. So he was freaking out.
Oh, see, Kim remembers
I
more
remember
of this.
that part.
She remembers more of the story than I. But yeah, he had found it. And basically what it is now is it's really just like still an excavation site. And it is covered, big tourist attraction. But it is a line of soldiers that were made out of clay, into statues. And what's so impressive about it is it has horses, thousands of soldiers. Each soldier looks different. There's no repeat. They're literally made to look like different people. And what it was is, I think it is a burial site of one of the past emperors. And basically it's guarding his tomb. It's the soldiers guarding the emperor's tomb.
Yeah, and we only got to see, I think, 3 of the pits, but there were 200 of them that are still buried. And there's only 3 that have been excavated.
3 of the pits. Yeah.
It was so crazy. Yeah, it was amazing.
And some of them have been broken into pieces, but people are working to put them back together so that they have more of a complete collection.
Yeah, and they say that some of them are broken because over the years, as the tomb was hidden, other coming in soldiers and people exploring that area would come in and just like barge down the doors, so the soldiers got knocked over and got broken, and a lot of the gold and treasures that were in there were all taken out. So that's why it's mostly just the soldiers and some of the copper and stuff like that in there still.
Because I believe it was like left in the open, but just over time and over the centuries, all the dirt and mud has filled it up, so that everything's
it's about
buried.
2,000 years old.
Yeah, really old.
But what they do have is really impressive. I believe in one of the pits was even like a chariot, like the horse carriage. That was really impressive to see.
Really cool.
I know you mentioned it was for the emperor and death. I think it was, he commissioned someone to design his entire army in terracotta so they can protect him even in death.
Yeah, and I believe it took like 30 years.
It's crazy. It was amazing.
Before he died.
You know what I remember, though? I don't think that they had air in there, and so it was super hot. It was really hot that day.
Yeah. One of the really cool things about Xi'an, really its claim to fame really is the Terracotta Soldiers. But one thing that was really, really impressive and fun that our tour company Gate1 did is they actually took us to an outdoor park. And I know I had a good time there. What did you ladies think of the park? And tell us a little bit about what was going on there.
The park was this is probably my most favorite thing that we did in China. So, and again, this is one of the benefits of going with the guided tour, because they're taking you to these off the path spots. And so it was early in the morning, and this is where the retirement village of the city goes. And it's just, they have dances, they have songs that they're singing. And so we were able to dance with the locals, and there's just no way to describe it. It was just so...
It was definitely one of my favorite things too, and we never would have found it on our own or even known about it.
Yeah.
We did Tai Chi. Remember that with the swords?
That was like the first thing we did was the Tai Chi.
And then we got to do little exercises and yo-yo. I think we were doing yo-yo
and hacky sack.
Hacky sack. So we did those dances, and then they moved us over to the song. And so the Chinese people believe that every morning you need to exercise a little bit, like light exercise, not like a HIIT class like we do here in America. And they also believe that you need to sing or talk to get the spirits from when you were sleeping out of your body. And that's how it wakes you up. So they do these songs. They had like a whole orchestra out there.
They even sang Jingle Bells, they played Jingle Bells.
Our whole
for
group,
us.
they brought us to the front of the orchestra area and sung us Jingle Bells.
Yeah, and then when we were dancing, they were in dragon outfits.
Oh, that was really cool too.
Yeah, so it's not a conga line, but something similar to a conga line, where we're just like dancing behind one another.
It was almost like being in a parade, but not a parade, all just confined to that area in the park. Yeah, it's kind of like their daily routine and exercise. So I thought it was definitely one of the more cultural highlights of the trip, and something really unique that I think Zaina said, if you weren't on a guided tour, that's something that you would never see or never think to experience, to go there or know to find it.
And there was something there for everyone, and the retired community goes there a lot, which is really nice to have a sense of culture and community in that area.
Yeah, I know. I wish my parents could do something like that now that they're retired. It keeps them healthy. It keeps them social, because I think that's the biggest thing when you're retired.
They go there also to say if they have single grandkids, they talk about their grandkids.
Yes, I was about to say that too. I remember them saying that. That's one of the top draws of the park, is they go to gossip to see who they can set up their grandchildren with.
And one other thing, the retirement age in China is like 50. They retire really young, so they may be retired, but they're not like elderly in a walker, like can't move. They're youthful.
Mm-hmm. And they age well because they're Asian. I can say that because I'm Asian.
That is very true.
They all look very young. True. And they were really, really nice. And as we were leaving, they clapped us goodbye. They gave us a standing ovation as we left.
Yeah.
They were just so nice.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things too that we did in Xi'an, which we really all enjoyed.
I say this about everything, but this was like one of my favorite things we did.
Oh, with the park or the dumpling dinner? I'm about to say.
Dumpling dinner.
Yeah, the dumpling dinner. Zaina enjoyed this one more than the Peking duck dinner, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
It wasn't that expensive, but this was one of the
It was like
add-ons
$12 a
did.
person.
Yeah, and it was one of the add-ons that we did with the guided tour. Thank God, because it was amazing.
So to kind of explain the add-ons before we get more into it is basically when you pick your tour, you pick obviously where you're going and it tells you what is included in the itinerary, and then on a few different days you have the option to add on another tour or a dinner or experience, and so it's something you can pre-plan in advance, and typically they're reasonably priced and worth the experience.
Right. So every city that you're in, there is always a tour every day, but the extensions are usually the evening activities, which include like a dinner or a show or something like that. So you can opt to, once you're done with the day and the tour, do things on your own or be a part of like a group activity as well. So it gives a lot of flexibility within the tour that way.
The other one that we added on was in Shanghai, I believe, and that was the circus.
Yeah, the acrobat show. That was
Yes.
amazing.
That was really cool.
The
just
acrobat show
amazing.
and the night river cruise just as well. But
We didn't do the night river cruise.
What are
Yeah,
you
we did.
talking
Oh,
about?
she did. That's right. That's right. Okay.
On the Bund River.
That's right. Whoops. I don't know where I was. Okay, so back to the dumpling dinner. So they're just not any dumplings. Was like 17 different kinds of dumplings?
Yes.
All different looks, tastes, shapes, feels, smells.
Like one came out looking like a swan, another one comes out looking like a walnut.
There was
The
a
other one
pig.
looked like a cabbage. Does anyone remember the one that
Oh,
looked
yeah,
like a
the green
cabbage?
one.
Yeah, well, I thought it was purple, and then it had like the little.
there was a green one too. Yeah, that one was
Yeah.
purple.
And then in the back they had like a whole display of dumplings that they would make look like little scenes. So there was like one that was like all fish, and there was another one that was like a farm.
There was someone there making them on display too.
Yeah, super impressive.
The little duck shaped one was my favorite, and we like had the sauce in a plate, and we were like, "Oh, the duck's swimming!" And it was so cute.
But I mean, obviously, you know, in China you can find dumplings anywhere, but this is where they had, you know, the tour extension, number one. But in Xi'an, they're particularly famous for their dumplings more so than anywhere else. That's why it was in the city of Xi'an. But the dumpling dinner, definitely a highlight. Good
Hands
food.
down,
Yeah.
do not miss it.
Do not miss the dumpling dinner.
And in this city, we had this is an example of where we had one of the personal tour guides in addition to our tour guide for the entire trip as well. So she specialized in this area because she was from that area.
She was from Xi'an, yeah, and I believe she was a history major, so she knew a lot more about the Terracotta Soldiers just as well, and so they were definitely able to give a more personalized story and experience of the city than just the normal tour guide. So that's one of the ways that the tour also enhances it. It's more personalized that way just as well.
Our local tour guide there in Xi'an, she was so cute because she constantly referred to herself in third person, and every time she did, like it's so cute.
And
is.
she said panders.
Yes, it was
so
adorable.
And idea.
Yeah,
We definitely can't criticize because her English is 10 million times better than our
No
Mandarin.
criticizing. It's
No,
just
I know.
cute.
I know.
It's
No, it
adorable.
was. I definitely did like the way.
Every
that
time she said it, I smiled.
Me too.
Yeah. And then, so any final thoughts on Xi'an, ladies, before we get to Shanghai?
Let's move this trip along.
Oh, real quickly though, when we were in Xi'an, I just have to say that Brittany and Kim have the same dress, and they totally twinned that day, and it was just really cute because we were walking around Xi'an. This is the day that we didn't have a night dinner or anything planned, and just people's heads turned because two little cute girls walking in the same dress through the city.
Okay, let's go to Shanghai.
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 So the first thing I want to talk about is the riverboat cruise that we did at night, and it was on the Bund River in Shanghai. We actually didn't add this on to our itinerary in advance, and once we realized what it was going to be and how recommended it was, we decided to ask our tour guide, can we add this on last minute? And luckily he was able to accommodate us, and we were able to get on the night river cruise.
I think Shanghai was the most like metropolis city that we were in on this trip. So the skyline is beautiful. They have just such modern interesting, colorful architecture. It looks beautiful at night. And that's what this river cruise was. You're going along the river and you see the city skyline in the background. And it goes along the whole time. So you see different angles of it, different parts of it. Just gorgeous.
What I thought was really interesting just about the city in general was the traffic and the license plates. Do you guys remember that?
That was anywhere.
Was it? Because in Shanghai, there's so many drivers in Shanghai that it costs like what, 12,000, 15,000?
It was all of China. They're charged for their license plate.
Oh yeah, well that's super interesting.
Something our tour guide told us about the license plates.
Yeah, because there's so many cars, you have to pay X amount of dollars for your license plate, and then but in Shanghai, I remember him saying there are certain freeways that you can't drive on unless you have a Shanghai license
It
plate.
wasn't a Shanghai license plate. It was how it was numbered.
Oh, okay.
So like if your
Certain
license
days of the
plate
week.
started with like an even number or an odd number, that dictated if you can drive on the highway
That day.
that day specifically.
That's crazy.
To reduce the traffic.
Yeah.
And license plates, you can pass them on to future generations. Like when you're done driving with that car, you just move that license plate to another car and you can
Pass it down to your child.
Yeah.
Really interesting system. But I just want to go back real quick. The Bund is actually the name of a waterfront promenade area in Shanghai along the river. The river is not the Bund River.
What's the river called?
I can't pronounce it. I believe it's called the Huangpu River, if I'm not mistaken.
okay.
I
That
think
sounds
that's what.
familiar.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
One of our other highlights from Shanghai was the Chinese acrobat night. Another one of the tours that we added on. I wasn't expecting it to be a circus show, but it was much like a circus show with acrobats like 7 high flying through the air on trapeze and that big circle cage thing that all those motorcycles were in.
Oh, that was crazy.
They got like 7 motorcycles in this giant circular cage.
So first they would start out with one motorcyclist going and he would get inside the cage and just spin around and around, and then a second one would enter, and then they were kind of crossing directions, and so they ended up adding about 7 in the cage total, and it was just so amazing to watch them all be synchronized and not crash. I would be afraid to crash.
Yeah,
It's impressive.
I mean, it was a small little ball steel cage that they were driving in with their motorcycles. It is impressive, but beyond that, like Kim was saying, they were doing some sort of trapeze, but a lot of them were doing balancing acts where it was 2 partners and one would hold the other person up with just like one hand, and it was really elegant and really interesting to see the Chinese acrobat show. That also included dinner. Let's not forget about the dinner that night that they had just as well with it.
Yeah, speaking of balancing, there was one girl who was riding her bike, and then 5 people jumped on and rode the bike with her while she was balancing it. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Feats of
Another great night in China.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we did just as well in there, and in each of the cities, we didn't really touch on them too much in the other ones, but they take us to someplace kind of unique. What they did, they took us in Shanghai to a place where it is basically, I don't want to call it a silk factory, but it was almost that art pavilion where they would literally make pictures out of silk, and they looked like they were
so
like
cool.
beautifully painted. I was almost going to buy
I
one.
wanted to buy all of them, but they were really expensive.
I know. I almost bought one, and it was because they were expensive that I opted not to. But they have everything, honestly, they look like paintings, but it's all silk, hand woven and sewn photos of, just anything of Chinese like architecture. They even had Van Gogh replicas,
Starry Night,
and that's what I wanted to buy was the Vincent Van Gogh Starry Night. But really, really interesting to see, because in each city, they take you to someplace kind of, more unique and abstract outside of the normal tourist things. And that's something that they were really famous for in Shanghai.
Also in Shanghai and in China in general, China's known for like knockoff items. And so our tour guide took us to a bazaar,
The Shanghai Bazaar.
the Shanghai Bazaar.
That was an experience.
it was
fun.
really cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's where you get to negotiate for all of the knockoffs, which was a fun
Oh,
experience.
so negotiating tips. Never, ever, ever accept the first price that they give you.
Don't even accept their 5th. I mean,
They love to negotiate.
Whatever price they give you, at least knock it in half and say, this is my price. You'll use a calculator because they don't speak English very well, so you'll communicate numbers that way. And just keep going down or stick to your price. Walk away if you have to. They will chase you down. And if that person really won't accept your price, go a little bit farther outside of the main. Everything sells the same shit. So go a little bit farther out and you will get it for the price that you
Kim,
want.
didn't someone chase you down?
Oh, I had a lady grab my arm and try to pull me back, like take me with her. And I lost you guys at that point. I was by myself and I was like, no, lady, like, let me go. I don't want to go to your back room with you.
Because you walked away from her final offer.
She showed me a cardboard thing of like watches and purses. And I was trying to get a knockoff purse. And I was like, oh, I'm interested. But I wasn't trying to go in the back room with this lady by myself. And she had my arm really strong, too. I was like, let go, lady.
I did end up getting a knockoff Michael Kors purse.
I did as well. We were in that store, and they have it in the back section, not in the front section, because I guess it's also illegal in China, I'm assuming. And we like kind of peeked back there and then went back there and negotiated for a while. And Brittany and I both got Michael Kors purses. And if I wish I would have gotten more.
Yeah, if they don't have kind of what you're looking for in that area, they'll call somebody and be like, oh, and then they'll seriously bring it around for you guys. But yeah, you got the purse. We also got, Brittany and I at least got the tea set, which we love and actively use. But I will say
when are we going to have that tea party?
We're going to have it soon. I've extended the offer so many times, ladies.
We need to make it happen.
I want to have the high tea evening. But anyway, one thing I wanted to say to touch back on what Kim was saying is obviously clearly don't accept the first offer. I said don't accept the fifth, but not that we paid a lot for Brittany's knockoff because it's a really good one. We paid like $30.
So. Which, by the way, they had to make a call and we waited for someone to bring it so Brittany can see the purse.
Absolutely. I still feel we overpaid. You know what I mean? No. So, well, I mean, I feel
not
like
when that purse is $200 normally.
No, true, but what I mean by that is if we were harder, we could have probably maybe gotten it for 25, 20 is what I mean. So really, like, if you love to haggle, like this is the place to do, and like don't be afraid to really give a rock bottom price.
Well, you have to start at rock bottom because if you think about it, if they have something for $10 and you want to get it for $5 and you give in at $5 and you tell them that you want it for $5, you've already shot yourself in the foot because now she's going to say $8, then you're going to say $7, and you're not going to get it for what you want. But if you start with $2,
and then you can no matter what price you tell them, they will go, oh no. But they are just bluffing.
Yeah, they'll act like they're offended by the lowball offer. Yeah. That's a fun experience, that's for sure.
It is, yeah.
And like Jamal mentioned earlier, Shanghai is the city that we got a free day to do whatever we wanted on.
We had the option to do like a river excursion, which seemed really cool, but we had something better that we needed to do.
We went to Shanghai Disneyland. We are going to have a separate episode on that
because there's so much to talk about
on that particular topic. Absolutely. But again, touching back on why one of the reasons why we went on the trip was specifically for this free day so that we could go to Shanghai
truly
Disneyland while we were
magical experience that you cannot miss in Shanghai,
except for the
seafood churros.
Oh, they did have seafood. We didn't try those. But what was it? What did we do for lunch that day?
It was the high tea.
High tea. I have never had high tea before in my life, and everyone was like, oh my goodness, you're going to love high tea. And I don't think that this Disney really nailed it.
It wasn't the best one ever, but it was great still.
Yeah.
Because of where we were.
And you really liked the tea that was served that day.
Oh, they had the best tea. Oh,
it was delicious. I would agree. But
I would do it again.
Like we said, Disneyland on a whole nother episode. So stay tuned, listeners, for that one. But any final thoughts, ladies, on the trip? Any of the cities that we didn't touch on before we get to questions?
Oh, you guys, we didn't talk about the Forbidden City.
Oh, in Beijing?
Yeah.
Oh, when you guys forgot your passports.
Is that where it was?
Okay, so the night before, our tour guide told us, make sure to bring your passports. The place we're going tomorrow sometimes requires passports. Everybody brought their passport except for Zaina and I.
So Kim and I were always each other's plus ones, right? You got to book with someone. So Kim and I are in the same room, and obviously Jamal and Brittany married. They're with each other. And that morning Jamal and Brittany did not remind us to grab our passports.
Are we your mom and dad?
Sometimes.
On vacations, whenever Jamal pays for something, I always say, Thanks, Dad.
But I mean, obviously we
welcome.
pay him back, right? Jamal's just kind of the bank of Jamal and giving us a loan up front.
And they're always like, knock on our door before they go down to see if we're ready.
Yeah, so they take good care of us. And so we
can't
completely
believe
forgot to
they
grab our
didn't remind
passport.
us.
Yeah.
Passports.
Because when we were, this is in Beijing, and this is the best breakfast buffet at the
On the
hotel.
entire trip.
Yeah,
the Musili was so good.
we stayed at 3 hotels. This one in Beijing had the best breakfast buffet, so we were always down there.
Shout
us
out
four
to the
together.
breakfast buffet.
Yeah.
We'll always love you.
Seriously.
Always love the Gate1 breakfast buffets, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, every single morning we're down there, we're having our breakfast, and Jamal and Brittany didn't say anything. So by the time we get onto the
We
bus.
didn't say anything because you had a reminder the night before we went to bed.
Okay, so they did remind us, but we forgot by the
Learned your
morning.
lesson, didn't
So we
you?
get on the bus, and there's probably 45 people in the group. So the tour guide asks, does everyone have their passport? And everyone goes like, yay. And then Kim and I, you just see our faces drop. And luckily we're in the front and we're like, oh, we forgot ours. And
We're right there. We just run back. No big
exactly.
deal.
But the way that he looked at us, like
He gave you a death stare.
Yeah, like really like shame on you. He was not
this
happy.
is the first day that we're going out as a group in the city. And so he's telling us like, hey, if everyone is 1 minute late, then that puts us behind like 40 minutes late because so like let's be respectful.
He gave us lots of lectures prior to. So Kim and I get off the bus and we go running. And
Before we really run into the hotel, though, we look back at the bus and we see Jamal's face, shaking his head, scowling at us.
I was so disappointed in both of you.
It was the biggest scoff ever.
I was disappointed in both of
It was
you.
like the dad disappointment look.
Yeah. So
Not
then
upset.
We
Disappointed.
get very disappointed. Like his face, his scoff. It was priceless. So we get back on the bus, and Brittany tells us that when you were off, we got a lecture. What was it? What did he lecture you guys about?
Timeliness and courtesy to other patrons on the tour.
And so Kim made the comment that clearly he gave it to the lecture to the wrong group of people.
Yeah, and like for many Gate 1 tours, you're going on with multiple people, and depending on where you're going will dictate the size of the group. So for example, on this trip in particular, there was 39 of us.
Yeah. But for the record, Kim and I didn't make that mistake again. We learned.
Probably because we reminded you the entire time.
There we go.
We didn't want to be
figured out
embarrassed.
our
We were
workflow.
embarrassed because of you guys as well, just because we were associated with you. But yeah, Zaina makes a good point. We didn't touch on the Forbidden City, which was the historic imperial palace grounds, from the former dynasties that China used to have.
Pretty impressive.
It was. I mean, we would literally get there and walk through one area, and then I thought, okay, we're coming to the end. I mean, it was... I felt like 5 miles long just in one direction, but it was really interesting to see the traditional ancient Chinese architecture, being in the palace grounds of the old emperors. It's just really a unique historical experience to have been there.
Wasn't there Jamal, I went with you to try to get a picture of something and there was too many people.
It was hard.
Yeah,
It was crowded.
This was probably the most crowded of any of the places that we went to in all of China.
But still worth seeing.
Of course, yeah.
If you're there.
So moving into our next segment, we are talking
My
about
favorite.
questions of the week.
Questions. Thank you guys so much for sending in your questions. We have a couple good ones about China and about traveling in general. As just a reminder, you guys can always send us questions on Instagram or Twitter at Travel Squad Podcast, and we'll answer you right away, or we'll put it in a whole new episode.
So one of the questions we got was, why did we pick China? But we did answer that mostly. I mean, we picked it because of the cost. And
We talked about cost, but how much did we actually pay for it?
Wasn't it less than 800?
No.
No, that
It
seems
was
way too low.
$1,300.
It was $1,300.
For
It was
a 10-day trip.
It was $800 if you chose not to get the flights
flights.
included. But with flights included, it was around $1,300.
That's such a good deal.
For
No
10
wonder we
days,
went.
flights included, transportation, meals, tours.
And don't forget that we didn't just get our round trip flight from LAX to Beijing and back. We also got the flights from Beijing to Xi'an, Xi'an to Shanghai. So it included every single flight we went on, every single hotel. We didn't have to do any booking. It paid for our transportation. It paid for entrance to any of the places that required an entrance fee. It paid for all of our breakfast, some of our lunches, and then if we did the optional add-ons, sometimes dinner was included in those as well.
The two things that were not included in the trip, though, were tips. So please tip your guides if you're going to do a guided tour. They definitely deserve it. And tip your bus drivers because they absolutely deserve it too. They have an air-conditioned bus waiting for you after a day of walking around. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that was not included was you do need to purchase a visa, which I think was about $150.
It is for a 10-year visa.
10-year visa. We went through an agency that we submitted our application, our paperwork, and they ran it to the consulate for us and brought it back to us. So if you're going to get a visa and there's not a consulate near you, go through an agency.
And I really recommend that because the only time you could pick it up was during business hours. So if you work a normal, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, you would have to take a day off to go deliver it and then another day off to pick it up.
Yeah, because it's not same day. It takes like 2 days.
Well, that's, again, if we're talking we live in major cities, if anyone's inland, there is no Chinese consulate, so they're going to have to mail it anyway. But anyone who lives coastal, close to one, definitely do the mail-in option versus, taking and dropping it off for them.
Yeah. And then the other question we got is the food good?
Food is such a big part of traveling. It's why we go to a lot of the places we go to, and just part of experiencing another destination. Was the food good?
Absolutely.
It was amazing.
It was delicious.
1,000%. I want to eat that food right now. I am dreaming about chicken and rice and noodles.
I still think of that sweet and sour pork every day.
Yeah.
No exaggeration. That's the best sweet and sour pork I've ever had in my life. So good.
I really liked that the style was the Lazy Susan
Oh, I loved that.
in the middle of the table. So they brought out a ton
Family
of different
style.
dishes, and they would put them all on the Lazy Susan, and you just spin it around, and each person would try a little bit of everything. It was the best way to try a variety of different foods.
We tried a lot of their beer as well, and I'm not as impressed. And the reason is not because of taste necessarily, but because of the percentage of alcohol. All of their beers are like 3%. And we were shocked. And so one day we tried to order Budweiser because we're like, oh, it's American brand. It's going to be like 4 or 5%. Nope. They reduced the alcohol in the Budweiser to match the Chinese standards. So just know that beer is like soda there.
It's almost like a soft drink.
Yeah.
And they don't have Diet Coke or Diet anything. They only have regular. I don't drink Diet Coke anymore, but when we were there, I was heavy on the Diet Coke, and there's none of that.
The hot tea was bomb, though.
Yes.
Always good. The jasmine hot tea.
Oh.
But, on the food as well, I think we mentioned this earlier, a lot of people said like it's not as good as you expect it here. I did not find that to be the case at all. I thought it was above and beyond and better. And that's one of the other reasons why I think the tour was so great. They actually take you to local restaurants. It's not like when you go somewhere, sometimes you ask for recommendations. Maybe someone will tell you what they think you may like. This was localized cuisine. Absolutely delicious.
I thought the food was definitely better than what it is here in the States. I do not eat Chinese food here in the United States, and I went crazy for the food in China.
And it was cool, too, because of the tour, we were able to try things that we would not order on our own on the menu. So there were these like little shredded like potato noodle things at one point that we never would have known what they were, but they were really good.
Yeah. And so they want to impress you. Gate1 does, right? They want you to come back and use them. So they're giving you an overabundance of food. So you never have to worry like, oh my goodness, is it going to be enough? You are going to have
like stuff every day.
Yeah, like so much. So although they're bringing out food, there are a few opportunities where they give you the option of choosing plate A or plate B, and you're going to eat it by yourself. There's no Lazy Susan for that. And so when we keep referencing Jamal's sweet and sour pork, that was the day where you had option A or option
sweet and sour pork.
Yeah, I don't even know what option A was. I got option A, and I know that Jamal got sweet and sour pork, and I deeply regretted that decision because the sweet and sour pork that they brought out to Jamal was phenomenal.
One of our other listeners had the question of when you enter a country and don't know the language, what do you do?
This is so prevalent to China because there's no way you can communicate with someone that doesn't speak English there. So what we did, we actually got a Chinese language learning app, and we were practicing our Chinese. Remember when we were in the airport coming back from Cuba and you and I were practicing Chinese?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
But bring an app with you as well. And that's really going to help you to say different words. Or that day that we were trying to buy beer from the liquor store guy, he was using his translation app with us.
Yes, I remember that. I remember that. So, I mean, we didn't have to encounter this issue a lot because of the tour, but just in general, a translation app is so key. And it's really respectful when you go to another place, another culture, where they have another language, to at least make the attempt. That is what is important. So the translation app helps. And even when you're still at home before your trip, look up key phrases. Just go to Google and say key phrases in Chinese. It'll teach you the hellos, goodbyes, please, thank you. A little bit like that goes a long way, definitely in making it more smooth and for you being more respectful while you're there.
Those are the ones you should always know, no matter where you are. The please, thank you, excuse me, hello.
Plus, everyone loves someone who tries. So if you show them that you're making an effort to learn their language, to speak in their language, they are so excited anywhere you go, right?
Anytime we said ni hao, the people smiled so big at us.
Yeah. Or how do you say thank you, Jamal?
Shit. I think I'm saying it with the correct pronunciation. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're so much more willing to help you and like want to try and be engaging in the conversation if you just put in a little bit of effort yourself.
Even if you don't say it right, it goes a long way.
Another question we got were, how are the bathrooms in China?
This was a big one, and we knew going in that we were going to encounter some of these, and I was scared, and I still am.
We managed.
So most of the bathrooms in China are bring your own toilet paper bathrooms, and you have to squat over the hole.
They're squatty potties.
And if there are Western toilets, people still get on top of
We
the
saw
seats,
footprints on the toilet seats.
and they squat over the hole on the Western toilet.
They have signs that basically say, do not stand on the toilet. Obviously, they're made out in pictures and you can depict obviously what it is, but they're trying to tell people not to stand on the toilet and do the squat.
Majority of them are squatty potties, though.
Yeah.
But you know, I
Not in the
prefer-
hotels. I just want to throw out, not in the hotels.
In the
This is
hotels
when
we
you're
stayed in,
this
yeah.
is when you're out in public.
They did have them at Disneyland, though.
Yeah. But you know, okay, so Disneyland, when we
But
were
they also
there,
had Western toilets at Disneyland also.
But what
They
was
did.
weird, I saw people waiting in line for the squatty potties.
I like the
Even when
squatty. When we were at Disneyland, I chose the squatty ones because the Western ones are going to be dirty anyways. And so I'm going to be squatting over it. So I felt like having a hole was easier to just,
Not me. I struggled the whole time.
Oh, I love the burn in the thighs, man. What a great opportunity.
What a good workout, huh?
Yeah.
From the Inca Trail. I had my
You were
squat.
prepped?
Yeah, I had my squat.
No, I was
down.
scarred from the Inca Trail, and then the pain continued in China.
So I rolled up some toilet paper and I made like a whole bunch of little rolls and I put them in a plastic bag to put in my purse to carry around, because during the day when you're out all day long and you're not in even in the restaurants, some of them had squatty potties. I just wanted to bring my own toilet paper just in case. And then also some of the places we went to, the toilet paper, if they provided it, was outside of the stalls. So like right when you walked into the bathroom, there was like a gigantic roll.
You have to get what you need before you go in.
Guesstimate your need.
I know, right?
Hope
Don't
nothing
guess
else
wrong.
Yeah.
You're like, Brittany!
Actually,
Some more toilet paper!
I asked because there was one day that I didn't bring toilet paper with me because I thought, oh, you know what? Brittany's going to have toilet paper. If I need it, I'll just ask Brittany.
Yeah,
So-
day 8 into the trip, Zana still wasn't bringing toilet paper.
So I look at Brittany and I'm like, hey, Britt, can I have some TP? And she gives me the dirtiest look. You know that you need to bring your own toilet paper. I can't believe, like, she's toilet paper shaming me.
Well, I don't want to run out for my own self.
So then I was like,
Scarce over there.
no, never mind. It's okay. I don't need any toilet paper, whatever. And so Brittany's like, "Ugh, are you kidding me? Just take some toilet paper. So thanks, Britt, for that.
You're welcome.
All right, our very last question, and this is probably the most important one for China, is do you need a VPN?
Yes.
What's a VPN? Virtual private network. Basically routes your phone through another destination. Ours are putting us here in San Diego in America. The VPN would route us through Sweden. So we needed it for China because Does our government not
Their
allow-
internet censorship rules that they have over
Okay.
there. So
There's no social media.
You can't access Facebook.
Google?
You couldn't access Google.
Yahoo even
You
and
can tell that
whatnot.
I will die without Google.
Or social media.
So, okay, you're on a 10-day trip. You're doing all these amazing things. You want to share them with the world. And you need social media for that. You also need maps, Google Maps. So get a VPN. I can't remember what company we went through, but I can do some research and we'll put it in the show notes. But I think it was only about $12 for a 30-day VPN. It's very, very easy to get, very easy to set up on your phone, and will save your life. And I'm very passionate about those.
And pro tip, when you're done with the trip, turn the VPN off.
Cancel your subscription.
Because Zaina did not turn her VPN off when we landed in LAX. And so we were taking the shuttle back to our car, and she is so upset that she can't access the internet. And she says, what did you say, Zane?
I am going to write my phone carrier a strongly worded letter. I don't understand what's going on with my internet. And so Brittany's like, can I see your phone? And I'm like, what are you going to do? I can't fix it. I can't fix
Having
it.
a freak out. Oh my God.
I just want to say I didn't have a freak out that trip.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is extremely important. Zaina had a freak out in China that I have to talk about.
No, I don't consider it a freak
Okay,
out.
it was totally a freak out.
We all
So-
know it was at the museum.
No. Oh, okay. So she had two.
It's a Marouche thing.
The first one, I think we were in Shanghai, right? Where they had those cool wooden tubs in the locker room. So at the hotel, we all get a key card. You have to put the key card in the hole for the lights to come on. So Brittany and I did a tour of the hotel, and they have a gym and a sauna, and they have these really cool, like 4-foot tall wooden bathtubs. And we're like, all right, this is awesome. We're going to come in here in bathtub and take pictures. So her and I put our robes on, and I pull the key out of the cart, and I think Zaina's in the shower. Zaina, meanwhile, comes out of the shower to the darkness.
Well, the darkness is turned on me in the shower.
And I guess she's like frantically searching for us, like runs down to the gym. The guy doesn't speak English. She's like, did you see two girls? He's like, what are you talking about, crazy lady?
I was pretty excited.
I think she knocked on your door.
Yeah, well,
she
she-
couldn't use the elevator because she didn't have the key.
Wait. So let me get this straight. You took the key card out of the wall that powers the electricity to the room while Zaina was in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just
And
wanted
for
to
some
make sure.
reason, we were going back up. We forgot something.
I don't remember.
I don't remember what it was, but we forgot something, so we're heading back up, and that's where we ran into Zaina. I was like, oh my God, where have you guys been? I've been searching for you. It's dark in the room. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
It wasn't a freak out.
It was definitely a freak out.
I was just excited.
Were you?
It was excitement from the chaos that the dark ensued.
And Zaina also had one other freak out on the trip. And it was when we were at a museum. And when we were on tour, because there's so many people and because we're all walking at different paces, our tour guide wears a headset, and we each have a little device called a whisper that plugs into his channel, and then you wear the headphones. And he kept telling us like when we would need the whispers. And that day Zaina did not pack her whisper. So everyone was asking Zaina, like, where's your whisper? Why didn't you bring your whisper? Why don't you have it?
Forget your whisper, forget your passport.
You know what? That was the day that we flew into Xi'an. And so I had it in like a backpack or something. So I didn't have it with me. And so then we didn't even go to the hotel once we landed. It was just like on to the next. So I didn't have it on me. I was fine. I just figured like, okay, well, I'm not going to hear what everyone else is hearing, whatever. But then everyone else was getting like, oh my gosh, Zaina, where's your whisper? Where's your whisper? And so then, I got like frustrated because I'm like, I'm not even complaining about the whisper. Oh, you know what it was? Our tour guide felt bad for me. So he gave me his whisper. And I said, no, I'm fine. It's okay. It's my fault. He's, oh, no, take the whisper. So I take the whisper. And when I took the whisper, Jamal gave me another scoff like he did when I forgot my passport. And when he gave me that scoff, it set me off because I was like, everyone is on my case about the whisper and I'm fine without it. So then I gave it back to our tour guide, and then I went and I cried, and I found an internet connection, and then I sent my best friend a message that Brittany's trying to ruin my life, and he texts, and he like sends me back like, I don't know what's going on, but Zaina, I really don't think Brittany's trying to ruin your life. And I said, no, really, she is. And then like I cried.
You want to know how this situation could have been avoided? If you just remembered your whisper.
You know what, though? It's actually good that you didn't, because I didn't love that museum. So you don't need your whisper.
Brittany's really
It's kind of boring.
not trying to ruin my life, guys. She was just looking out.
But
All right.
moral of the story, VPN. Getting back on that VPN.
Technology.
Yeah, you're definitely going to need it to access stuff that they have their internet censorship rules for in China. Definitely comes in very useful. You're going to need it.
All right, guys. Well, that's all we have for you on this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope that you enjoyed hearing about our trip to China.
People say, oh, you don't like China. I like China.
And I hope that this inspires you to get out there and see it for yourself. It's a beautiful country.
Please, everyone, subscribe to our podcast, leave a review, tell us what you like, and tune in every Travel Tuesday for new episodes.
And if you aren't already, be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Travel Squad Podcast.
All right, guys, next week, unpack your bags and stay tuned for our next episode. We're doing something a little bit different. We are sharing with you how to travel often.
All right, guys. See you next week.
Bye.
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 Bye.